Evening, everyone, and thank you for coming on a difficult evening. We hope it's not too difficult. I'd like to call a meeting to order of the Historical Preservation Board on Monday, November 16th, 2015. And could we have roll call, please?
Chair Clute.
Here.
Vice Chair McMurray. Board Member Garr.
Here.
Board Member Grove.
Here.
Board Member Kastner.
Here.
Board Member Miller.
Here.
Board Member Price. Board Member Leahy.
Here.
Board Member Spratlin.
Here.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, could I have a motion to approve?
A motion to approve?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Minutes to be approved, and Denise is going to quickly go over with us how we get to minutes since things have kind of changed online. So she's going to do a quick run through of how we find those.
I'm Denise Cernia, and I'm the Historical Preservation Board's recording secretary. And one of the new things that we've started doing for minutes is the video that we take during these meetings now serve as the minutes for the meeting. One of the places to not only view the video, but to also see the agenda for the upcoming meeting and the documents that you're going to be looking at is here at the Littleton website. On the website, you'll just need to go down here to Agendas and Videos. Click on that, and that will take you here to our Legistar page. And click on the Open Legistar Video and Agenda page. And when you do that, it'll take you to this next screen. On here, one of the easiest ways to look at it is if you know that you're looking for a particular board, you can search here using the drop-down. Go to Historical Preservation Board. If you want to look at the entire year, you have 2015, which is what I have open now, or you can look at just what's going on in the last month. This here is one of my favorite views because you can see here that the last meeting of the Historical Preservation Board that was a regular meeting was on July 20th, and the video here is the minutes for that meeting. You can also click, so here's this current meeting, November 16th. If you click here on the meeting details, you can see that these are the items that we're going to be looking at tonight, and the agenda is also available here. You can click on either these links here to both view the resolution, and this is the certification of the July 20th regular meeting minutes, or you can open the agenda itself, which is a PDF. And these are live links as well to both the file and the resolution. It also includes all the attachments that Dennis Swain is going to be going over as well. So since we're talking about the minutes, I did view the entire video from July 20th to make sure that it was accurate, there weren't any problems with it. And I recorded the motions, the votes, the roll call, anyone who was here for a public hearing wanted to speak. All that was recorded in our system. And so the certification of the minutes is really just saying that I reviewed it. Again, it's a full, complete, and accurate record of the proceedings. There were no malfunctions in the video. And so the motion that we're looking for is just to approve that based on my certification that the video for the July 20th regular meeting will serve as the minutes for the July 20th regular meeting. So even if you were not in attendance for that meeting or didn't have a chance to view the video, you're not certifying or voting that, yes, you did that. You're just saying that I viewed it and that based on my certification, the video will serve as the minutes. Any questions?
Thank you. Anybody?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Denise, very much. So do I have a motion, and there is a proposed motion in front of you, a motion?
I'll do it. Margie, I move to approve, based on the recording secretary's certification, the July 20th video as the minutes for the July 20th, 2015 regular meeting at the of the Historical Preservation Board.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So
Anyone
if I
opposed?
wasn't at the meeting, do I abstain from that or?
No,
watch the
I think
video?
as Denise,
It's where you watch the video. Okay,
yeah,
I understand.
I think you can still.
It's my certification that I viewed it, so you're just saying that the video will serve as the minutes for the
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, thank you. I now would like to open the public hearing to consider a recommendation of the designation of 5736 South Bemis Street as a historic landmark. Just for those of you in the audience, I'll do just a quick overview of what the process is. There'll be a staff presentation, a presentation from the applicant, then questions from the Preservation Board. Then there'll be time for public comments, and those will be limited to 3 minutes each on the public comments. Then there'll be applicant response to any comments. Then I'll close the public hearing, and then we'll have discussion and vote of the board. So that's the process that will be followed. So with that, I will turn it over to Dennis.
Great, thanks, Marty. Appreciate it. As you said, this is a public hearing for the HPB, the board, to consider a recommendation to City Council. So it's not a final decision by the board, but it's actually a recommendation to City Council, who will have a second public hearing and will make that final decision. It's regarding designation of a single-family house at 5736 South Bemis Street as a historic landmark for the city of Littleton. The policy question before the board is, basically, does the board recommend designation of this house for landmark designation? Procedures for nomination designation: the applicant, in this case, is the owner and the current resident. That's Paula Quinney. The date of application was September 24th, 2015, and the nomination contents, as required by the code. The characteristics which justify its designation are its age. It must be at least 40 years old. This house was built in 1908. It qualifies. Has to represent a built environment, and it certainly does represent what we think is a built environment for early Littleton. And it also has to have integrity. And integrity is that even though it's gone through some major renovation, it still maintains its historic quality and integrity. The nomination process, again, upon inquiry for nomination, the chair of the board and the director of community development both ask someone or one of their representatives to meet with the applicant and go over the procedures, go over the requirements, go over the obligations, and also the advantages of the historic nomination. Catherine and I did that, the vice chair, and went with the owner at the house. Went through that, and at that point, the applicant agreed to proceed with the nomination. So we did that on September 24th. At that point, the nomination was complete and actually began. The earliest known photograph that we have is only 2000. We worked with the museum. They researched, they looked through their records. They did not find anything earlier than this. This was actually in the 2000 survey of historic properties that was done for the city. Location: this is Littleton Boulevard, just to the north. The courthouse is here. The house sits on the east side of the street. This is Stern Park, and the Bemis house is right here. So it's just up the street from Bemis Street. And just across the bridge, of course, from downtown, the light rail station. An aerial photo, kind of showing a little larger area, going clear over to the county social service offices, as well as the courthouse here, and the recreation center to the north, and then all of downtown here. A little more of a close-up, and showing this east side of the street is all residential, single-family residential for the most part. And pretty consistent with this, what was there historically. Jenny Hankinson at the museum, the assistant curator, found this. It was the earliest thing that she could find as well, and it's a reference to the people who were living in this house at the time. At the time, the street was known as Santa Fe. It was not Bemis, it was Santa Fe. So a different address, and it was the Buchtels. Mrs. Bud Buchtel was living there at the time. Could not find anything earlier than that, so we don't have any earlier records of the house, even though we do know from the assessor's record that it was built in 1908. This is the survey that was done in 2000 for the house, went through and looked at the characteristics, both architectural characteristics as well as historic characteristics of who lived there as early as they could get back. They couldn't get back much farther than the same period as we did. So they were looking in the 1930s and 40s as well in terms of who was there as a resident. So we don't know who built the house. We don't know who lived in the house from 1908 until 1930. This, again, is the house as it appeared in the inventory. And this is the house prior to the renovation that the current owners did. They bought the house knowing they wanted to renovate it and did a really extensive job. This was the shed in the back of the house prior to renovation. And this is the backyard in the back of the house. It's rather dark on the screen here, and I apologize. But I don't know if you can tell or not, but the house at that point was in pretty bad shape. It was quite a brave effort to undertake this house. This is after the renovation. The house is in great shape. The shed's in great shape. This is the siding and some of the detail in the windows that have been worked on the north side. Window and siding again on the front porch. And again, the front porch had been rebuilt. And what the house looks like now. Compared to what it was in 2000 and compared to as far back as we know historically. The staff analysis, one of the requirements for staff analysis is that all properties receiving historic designation have to display social, architectural, geographic, or environmental importance by meeting one or more of the following conditions. The first one is the relationship of the proposed designation relative to the comprehensive plan. And when we look at the comprehensive plan, the vision statement for the comprehensive plan is probably the clearest thing and the most immediate. The first bullet in the vision says, Littleton will respect and build upon its history. The comprehensive plan contains a lot more goals and policies that get more detailed in terms of what that actually means, the implications of that. But this is one of the first bullet, which I think is significant in the overriding vision for the city. Staff analysis, again, the second thing is impacts. What are the impacts of designation of this property? The effect of the designation on the surrounding neighborhood, we see it as adding predictability and stability. It does not affect the development or redevelopment of surrounding properties, the provision of city services, or other neighborhood-related issues. Are there other planning considerations? We didn't see any other planning considerations. We thought that this really summed it up pretty well. When you look at other houses that we've designated as landmarks, this house is unique in terms of its age, its size, its design. There are larger houses, and typically, as you know, when cities and jurisdictions start a landmark program, they look at what are considered the most significant structures in the city or the jurisdiction, and that is often the largest structures, the structures which belong to the mayors or the bankers, or it was the ones that kind of stand out. But we don't have a lot of houses which really reflect more kind of what was typical of the people who really lived in the city, the majority of people who lived there. But this is kind of a slide show of going through of the landmarks from the earliest age of construction through the most recent. This was probably as close as we come, but it's an older house built in the 1880s. And is definitely Queen Anne, much more detailed than the house we're looking at, which is a simple craftsman cottage. This is a large Queen Anne. This is the Bemis house, of course. And again, this one probably comes close, except it's a two-story house as opposed to a one-story house, and a little different again in terms of the detailing and what happened. And then the houses started getting newer. We started getting into arts and crafts, into craftsman houses. So we've got bungalows, and we've got a very large bungalow. And then we get into more reproduction. And then we actually have one from the 1950s, which is a landmark house. This is a really good example of the prairie kind of single-family ranch house. And so that's our most recent landmark, one that actually is the newest. The board considerations are, it has to be 40 years old at least. As you define historic importance, you look at, does it exemplify specific elements of an architectural style or period? Does it represent a built environment of a group of people in an era of history? Has it undergone a significant historical model? We think it's done all of those things. Those are the three considerations that we saw that really stood out. We think in this case it's undergone significant historic remodel, exemplifies cultural, political, economic, or social heritage of the community, enhances sense of identity of the community. All those things we see as, those 15 considerations you have to choose from, and you have to meet at least one. We think it meets at least one very clearly, and four others, pretty well. Staff recommendation is that we think it meets the criteria required to display the architectural, social, geographic, environmental importance required for designation of historic landmark. The property meets the age requirement. It would be consistent with the comprehensive plan. It would definitely help preserve the characteristics of earlier Littleton and our character. The impacts of designation would be positive. As required, staff believes the property meets at least one of the 15 requirements. Specifically, it represents a built environment of a group of people in an era of history. But we think additionally, we can argue these other four, that it exemplifies specific elements of an architectural style, period. We think it's undergone significant historical remodel. And they've done a great job in the remodeling in terms of what was there and preserving this house. Exemplifies cultural, political, economic, or social heritage of the community, and enhances the community's sense of identity. We think, again, it's a unique structure in terms of something we have not landmarked, and it deserves to be landmarked as representing the best of a particular style and age for the community. And the physical impacts are minimal. As you know, there is a property tax rebate for a house like this. It's what we see in most houses, single-family houses. It's under $150 a year that actually gets rebated. So that's the physical impact of the city in terms of designation. And that's it. So, any questions about that?
Any questions for Dennis? Because I've got a couple here.
Okay.
One, when you did the research with the Littleton History Museum, again, what was it that you found regarding the history of the house?
The only thing that we could really find, we found the age, 1930, we found those residents at that point, and that's the only thing that we could find there. The other thing we worked with was the inventory that was done in 2000, the survey, which actually went through and identified what they could find out in terms of when it was built and who the residents were and the style of the house, and they actually detailed the styling of the house. So.
Okay. The other thing, on the photographs that you had of the other landmarks, some were eligible and some were not eligible in the surveys. Could you explain what makes them eligible or what makes them not eligible?
Well, I think that's an interesting thing. I identified those because I think it's interesting because we have gone through this house, the house on Bemis was not identified in the 2000 survey as eligible for the National Register. And when you look at the other houses that we have as landmarks, some of those weren't eligible either.
Right.
And I think the difference is it important to Littleton and does it meet different criteria? Also, the survey was done 15 years ago. And the criteria change, our perspective changes. When we go back and do the survey this time for Littleton Boulevard and look at those structures, I think we're going to have a different perspective in terms of what's eligible and not eligible, both for the National Register and the local register as well. So it's a tough thing to meet for the national. They've got a little higher benchmark than we have, and again, it's different. Looking more at what really stands out on a much larger basis, on a national basis than for us.
So those really eligible, not eligible is in regards to the national.
The national.
Okay, correct. That's a national designation.
That's correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, and they have a little bit stronger criteria than maybe.
They're a little stronger criteria, and are looking at a little different scale. They're looking at a national scale as opposed to local scale, and aren't really looking at, our particular history, so.
Okay. Those are the questions I had. Anybody else have a question of Dennis?
The applicant, Paula Quinney, is here, as well as her daughter, Heather, and her son, Adam. So I think Heather has prepared something she'd like to say, too. So, okay.
All right. Okay, thank you, Dennis. Okay, the applicant. And if you would just state your name and address for the record before you do your presentation, that would be great.
Sure, Heather Rowe. Heather Rowe. I live at 8219 West Phillips Ave in Littleton, Colorado. And thank you, Dennis.
And I'm sorry, what was your relationship to the owner then?
I'm her daughter.
Okay, great.
So now you've taken my first statement.
Oh, sorry.
So I just wanted to take a minute to talk about my dad, James Quinney, who restored this home. Dad was a craftsman who spent a large part of his life restoring old homes. When I was growing up in New Hampshire, he worked on homes dating back to the late 1700s and loved bringing them back to their glory. He loved this work and was serious about it. He was always learning about the homes he worked on and shared their history around the dinner table to our family. He loved that history and made sure to preserve it through his work. The house on Bemis was no exception. Man, was it an eyesore when they bought it. But he could see through that Smurf blue facade and the horrible carpet. He and my mom had a vision that I admire. So they took on the project and got to work with the help of friends and family, and they brought this house back to its prime. My dad passed away last spring after a long year of battling cancer and working tirelessly to finish his home. I know this home deserves to be on the historical register for all the reasons that Dennis just mentioned, so I won't rehash them. But I want it to be there for so many more reasons. First and foremost, because this was my dad's passion. One that culminated in this home, and that he passed on to his children, his friends, his family, and anyone willing to learn. I'm sure that he's smiling down on us just for trying, but man, would he do somersaults if you guys accepted it. So thank you so much for considering this. It really means the world to our family.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have a question for the applicant? Nope. Okay. Okay, I'll open the public hearing. And do we have anyone that wanted to speak? Okay, there wasn't a list. Okay, Pam, come on down and. Oh, okay. 3 minutes.
Okay.
And I think down here you can see where you are. I don't know.
Yeah, believe it or not, I've been here, done that before. So thank you very much, Historic Preservation Board and staff and the Quinney family for bringing this to Littleton's consideration. I really want to urge you to approve this. I've spoken to you before. I noticed that there were some historic designations in 73 and then a 20-year gap. So in 93, the board began to about yearly designate items as historic until 2009. And since 2009, nothing. I think that's what you're here for. It is our time. We must preserve now or lose it forever. And so I'm going to note that Longmont has almost 200 homes, I think, that are marked historic. Dennis showed a few. We're way behind, I think, for a city that calls ourselves historic Littleton. So I regard this as very important. I'd like to see this as the beginning of a resumption of historic designations. I look very much forward to the Littleton Boulevard study. I want to see that mid-century modern preserved. Again, I've spoken to you about this before. Colorado Preservation, Inc. called our Littleton Boulevard mid-century modern one of the 5 most endangered places in 2014 in Colorado. So, Historic Preservation Board, make history. Resume historic designation tonight and keep it up. And please honor the family, help our city by marking this home as a historic landmark for Littleton. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Leah. Up here.
Good evening. I'm Leah Burkett, and I own the property to the north of the Quinnies. When that property first came on the market, it was a wreck, as you saw from the pictures, and it was actually being advertised as a scrape. And we were kind of anxiously watching who's coming to look at this and who's going to buy it. And we get the most terrific new neighbors. And when we found out that Jim wanted to restore that house, it was amazing to watch the process unfold over the year. He looked at everything with such detail. He picked the right perfect door to go. He told us about how the paint was a historic color, and I just think it'd be a really nice tribute for the family. And it's a modest but beautiful home, and it'll be a nice addition to Littleton's historic list. So thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? No? Okay, I will close the public hearing then. Are we? So we'll have the Preservation Board discussion. And I think what we need to consider is, as Dennis said too, there's two things. One, the significance of the property, and two, the integrity. Has the integrity been kept of the property?
So I just have a question, and I don't know if we can answer it. Perhaps someone out there, is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. I just wondered about the front door. It looks like it was moved. Was that the original front door then, or is that just, or was it moved to its original place, or?
Yeah, it's interesting. We could not find a photograph of the house as it was built. And it seems strange to me that when you look at the house, and let me come back to this.
Much better.
You look at this photograph, we have a central eave, we've got one for the porch, and we've got the front steps lined up here, and everything's lined up in the middle except for the door, which is off to the side. And it almost seems like the door may have been moved to the left at one point. And so putting it back to the center, did I get it without going through all these things? There we go. So it goes from that, which is off to the center, and then back to where it's finished, and it's in the middle. Just seems like where it should have been. But we couldn't prove it.
Are most houses, I would assume most of them were in the middle. Yeah, I guess you can't prove it. I just thought it was odd. It almost looked like someone put two doors there and made an apartment or something. I just wondered.
Yeah, it's strange. And Paula said that Jim had looked at it too, and it wasn't sure. It looked like, given the structure of the house, may have been to the left originally. Oh, okay. But it certainly would be unusual to have everything else lined up and then have the door off to the side, I would think. But we couldn't find a photograph to prove that. We were looking for that. This certainly looks more like it should to me. But, yeah.
Okay. Out of curiosity, how long did the renovation take?
You need to come up to the microphone, thanks.
We bought the house, we closed on it on October 4th of 2 years ago. 2013. And we got, actually, it was on my Facebook today, we got the, or the beginning of the week, we got the demolition permit. So we probably started it 2 years ago today. And we moved in Memorial Weekend of 2014.
So, thank you. It's beautiful.
Well, while you're up there, before you leave, I have another question. Unless, did you have more to say about that?
You were asking the origin of the house, and when we made a plaque for Jim for Christmas last year, and when we did that, I went to the library, and it did say it was a railroad house. So I think our house and the two next to ours were all for the railroad workers. So I think that was
exactly my question, because it was in the application. And that housed railroad workers. I was wondering where that information came from, but that came from.
I got it from the library.
Okay, from the library. That's interesting.
So that was your question?
Yeah, that was my question.
Well, thank you for considering it.
Yeah.
Was much of the interior intact when you purchased the house? Details and woodwork, et cetera?
No.
No.
We completely restored the inside. It's different than it was, but it's beautiful.
Did you have a year in mind when you restored the inside of the house? I mean, were you thinking from when it was first built, or?
Okay, so when we looked at the house, the first thing Jim did was he went upstairs and he asked if he could go into the eaves. Because the front of the house, the dining room and half of the living room area, was a dropped ceiling, and he wanted to see how high the ceiling was. So he went in there and poked through, and he pulled the ceiling back up. So it's a coffered ceiling now in the front of the house, and then it drops down in the living room area. I don't think anything was original when we went in there. It was, actually they used rough cut lumber. It looked like the fence boards for trim around the windows. So we took all of that out. Mm-hmm. The inside is, actually it looks more historic now than it did when we bought it, that's for sure.
Did you keep any of the windows? Are these original windows?
2 front windows are not original, and the door, we put a new door in because the other one, but all the windows on the side, so all the windows on the north side, except one window in the bathroom that was there when we bought the house, are all the original. They're still single pane. So there's 4 windows that are original. And then on the left-hand side, the windows had been replaced, but all the outside trim is original. So Jim did the front window trim to look more original than it had been before. But other than that, all the sides is the original trim. It even has the little hooks to put shutters on or storm windows, so those are still there. So we'll see if I can afford to. I'd like to get the windows. Leah had actually told me about someone who will restore the windows that are there to double pane, and if we can afford it, that's what we would like to do.
One other question, maybe you don't know this. Was this house ever added on to?
Yes.
It looks like it. I've gone by it, and it did look like it.
So if you look at the back of it, actually, I think there's 2 additions. So the first addition, I think it was just this square at the beginning. The first addition had been the kitchen and the bathroom, and we actually made it into a hallway, a bedroom, and we extended the bathroom a little. And then the second addition, we think it was a porch that they closed in, but it was so poorly done that Jim totally ripped it down, and that's that back addition that we're working on.
Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't able to finish that. The outside is done now, and we're working on the inside of it. But we just hopefully made it look, we definitely made it look better than it did before. So I do think there are 2 additions on it since.
Okay, it looks like it.
Yeah. Any other questions before I poll all of you? Okay, Dan, what do you think?
Yes. I would vote yes to
Okay.
approve.
Any other comments? No? Sharon?
Yes.
Yes.
We don't even have a motion yet, I thought. Anything, Paul, you want to say? No? Pam?
Yes.
Ted?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I think there is a suggested motion that someone could make.
That's on page 6.
At the end of the proposed motion at the bottom of the page, if someone would like to do that. Unless there's anything else.
I'll do that.
Okay, Dan.
I move to approve the resolution recommending approval of designation 5736 South Bemis Street as a historic landmark.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, congratulations. You are now a historic landmark.
Do they get a
Wow.
sign?
Well, it's correct.
Well, I'm sorry, I take that back.
Yeah.
We are recommending it.
To the council.
We will send our recommendation to City Council, I'm sorry. Well, that will go, and do you know when that will go before City Council?
We're not quite sure. The city clerk was looking at trying to find an alternate date for it. It probably will be January 8th, the first meeting in January. I can't remember the particular date, but we're looking at the first meeting in January at this point.
Great, okay. I'm sorry?
So I have to leave the sign up through Christmas?
I can't hear you down there.
But does she have to leave the sign up through Christmas? Yes.
Oh, through Christmas, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look at it. So
Okay.
I'm assuming it's a different sign for city council.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. We have no scheduled appearances. I don't see Sonia here. Any unscheduled appearances? No? Okay, comments, reports, staff, Dennis.
Nothing further.
Any members? Anything you'd like to say?
I had a question concerning the new emails. Is that
Yes, that was one of my things too. So you go ahead on the emails. Did everyone get the email from Colleen about our
New Gmail accounts?
Has anyone set theirs up?
I did.
Okay, I haven't
I didn't.
had time to go in there.
I did.
Everything worked out okay?
It was easy. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just asking if we could get those, the ability to have them forwarded. Because otherwise we don't really know when we're getting these emails unless we go and check. And I think that's part of administrator privileges when it was set up. I didn't see that.
I could look into that further. One thing I was doing is like when I sent out the packets, I emailed it, I BCC'd it to your personal email to let you
Yes.
know it was also in the original.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm kind of doing that right now.
Okay.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. If that continues, if we get notifications, that's fine. I'm just concerned if an email goes out, that if we don't check on a regular basis, we may miss them.
I'll look into the forwarding capabilities and
Yeah.
get back to you.
Thank you.
Great.
At this point, we do not have any business scheduled for a December meeting, so want to consider not having a meeting in December. That would not break our hearts, probably. So.
No, that would be fine.
Well, okay.
Just to let you know, Catherine, who's chairman of the Landmarked Districts Committee, Catherine and Dennis and I are going to meet and start talking about strategy on landmarking more properties so that we can hit the road in the beginning of the year with some strategy to go forward with that.
That's great.
And we're thinking maybe to look at individual landmarks first before we tackle districts. That's a little bit bigger project, but we'll start working on that. The other thing, just quickly to mention, Mike Price, who is not here tonight, was in Paris when the bombings happened, and he's fine, everything's fine, and he's now in Normandy, but that was quite an experience for him, which will be interesting to hear about. Is there anything else from anyone? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay, I think we're all in favor, right?
All in favor? Yeah.
It's a record before it freezes.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Nice job on the house.
Beautiful.